and then we'll move right into introducing Erin.
Okay, thank you. So yes, as sponsor today, I was told I can tell you all a little bit about what I do and hopefully why it's relevant to all of you. I am a commercial real estate agent. I do not sell houses, and I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Professional Realty. My office is in Chagrin Falls, but our company is quite large. We're throughout the state of Ohio. We have like 36 offices and do an awful lot of real estate work. It is primarily residential work, and we do have a commercial division. So I am essentially the head of the commercial division for Cleveland, and we have offices in Columbus and Cincinnati as well. Commercial real estate, I'm sure everybody's familiar with it essentially, but it's really kind of defined as any real estate that is operated to create revenue for its owner. So that's everything from shopping centers to apartment buildings, industrial space, office buildings, restaurants, anything, anywhere a business resides really is commercial real estate. And I essentially represent both sides, but I think my sweet spot is really on representing businesses either looking to purchase buildings or lease space in buildings. So I often refer to it as tenant rep. So it's really representation on the client side. I do work with owners. I have listings, so I do represent owners of real estate as well. But with my background, I did 10 years previously, and then I left the industry and came back about a year and a half ago. But for 10 years, I did primarily represent businesses of all types to find space, get them into the space, negotiate their leases, help them walk through the tenant improvement process, which is really construction of your space. And having worked for a real estate developer for 7 years, I have a good, conversant knowledge of how buildings and things get built. So not just, hey, I'll find you some space, but I will help you negotiate a lease that is favorable to you, that meets your business needs, and also shepherd you through a process that can be pretty daunting. I can work literally anywhere in the state of Ohio with my license, but I definitely focus more on Northeast Ohio and have been, since I returned to real estate about a year and a half ago, I really have focused more in what I call my backyard, which is where all of you are as well. So Geauga County, Chagrin Falls area, all that type of thing. And really getting to know owners and businesses so that I can put people together in a way that's beneficial for everyone. So if and when you may have a requirement and I can help you, please do reach out to me, and I'll be happy to walk you through the process, find you space that you're going to love, and make sure that it makes sense for your financials as well. So that's kind of me.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much needed, and I have some background in that too, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on, especially in downtown Cleveland right now. So thank you, Lori. Thank you for sponsoring us, and you'll have more opportunities to be seen this month, so appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
So today's meeting, we're going to we've got some fun technology things we're going to try, but questions. So Erin has a lovely presentation, and she'll be doing some polling during her presentation. What we'd like to do is put questions in the chat box, and Katie and I will monitor that chat box if we need to interrupt, or if Erin pauses, that may be an opportunity. But mostly we're going to have her go through, and we'll have pauses for polling and that kind of thing. So that's just, that'll keep it smooth flowing. And thank you, Katie, for bringing us Erin. So Katie volunteered to introduce Erin today for all of our benefits. So Katie, take it away.
Okay, so it's such a pleasure to introduce Erin to all of you. I met Erin just about a year ago at a networking lunch, and I was really interested in talking to her because I had worked for a financial planner before. So I'm always curious about how financial planners got started and what their background is. And Erin will tell us a little bit about her story, but it's unique because she came from a different career that was also about helping people, which financial planning is ultimately helping people as well. And Erin and I had a chance to sit down and talk at her office, and she talked to me about how she likes to really help women and talk to women about finances and make it not such a scary thing. And so that really resonated with me. And I thought, what a perfect person to speak to this wonderful group of women. So that's how I've been ever since, trying to work it out that we could get Erin to speak. And it turns out that here we are virtually, but I'm very grateful that she could be here with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
Right. Hey, thanks a lot, for inviting me in the first place. And then ultimately, I'm going to thank you all for your patience going through this, because I have to say, when we originally talked about doing a presentation, it was in person, and this is very different. Our lives have changed dramatically. I can tell you that I've done a lot of Zoom meetings, but I've never done a presentation on Zoom. So that's where I appreciate your patience. I have no idea, as Pam mentioned, if the polling, I'm going to work it out with Tina, if it's going to show up in your chat box, or it might just show up on your screen, and you'll be able to enter the answers. And your answers are all anonymous. I don't want anybody to think that they'll know who wrote what, but I think it'll be great to encourage participation, because honestly, my greatest fear is that you're all going to nod off and I'm not going to know it, and I thought that it would be fun that I'd add this sound. Can you hear this? Little Jeopardy music. Okay, because then if you have nodded off, that might wake you up to be like, oh wait, there's a polling going on. So anyways, just kind of be fun and keep it going. Or if you're in the middle of a Pilates pose or something, oh, got a poll. So that's just my way to wager some extra participation. I do have a PowerPoint. Again, I'm going to share my screen in the PowerPoint, and possibly use chat if there's questions. There should be time at the end. And let me share this and we'll see how it looks to you. Because what I learned when I first practiced this is it looks different than exactly what I see. Do you see energizing, actualizing financial freedom? Yes? Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So this is the beginning. As Katie mentioned, let's see, how do you advance it then when it's in this place? Oh, that could be tough. Let's see. I got it right here. There we go. All right. I am a co-founder of V Financial Partners, and that's located in Aurora. This is a barn across the street from Mario's. It used to be part of Mario's. It's a great space, a great location. We live inside there usually, but not with this pandemic. So if you are ever in the area, I'd say pop in and see our space. But I don't know when we'll be back to popping in anywhere we go. So, but anyhow, we also have a second location, and that's in Independence. Should you want to check out our website, you can just go to erinvick.com, and that'll take you right to V Financial Partners. So as Katie mentioned, I've been doing this about 10 years, and I have a dear friend who always says, life happens as we're making plans. And let me just say that doing this virtual meeting was out of my comfort zone. It's not my thing, but I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice about continuing using this medium, right? And to me, it was a pivot, because a lot of what I focus on and a lot of what we talk about is how women are going to control 2/3 of the nation's wealth by the year 2030. It's kind of daunting. But what I've learned in all these years is that women don't really want to look at money. They don't want to talk about money. I mean, they take care of everybody else before they take care of themselves. I'm sure there's people in the outliers of the bell-shaped curve, but it's been consistent. So I do like to say that, life happens as we're making plans. We have to adapt, we have to adjust. And now with all the changes with this pandemic, I think it's more important than ever. And instead of just going down, I usually like to go down and talk to women about what women really want to talk about. They want good deals. They want to get money they didn't know they were entitled to. But today I'm going to pivot a little differently and a little tough love, because I think we have to get on board and get going right away. The pandemic has clearly affected all of us personally, professionally, financially, and it's a wake up. So it's not going to be just the fun stuff. It's going to, I hope, challenge you. But I'm asking you to know that this will be part life planning, not just financial planning, but your life plan. What life and financial are together. Before I worked in this, I thought financial was stocks, bonds, investments, and I didn't understand it. I had advisors. I was intimidated by the meetings. Our life planning can help us be prepared for things that cost us a lot of money. Doesn't matter if we lose it in the stock market or we lose it to an expense or unforeseen circumstances like a pandemic. Hopefully we don't see a second one. This will also be part financial planning. And I hope it has a hint of inspiration for somebody or anybody in all of this. The objectives today, to me, this is going to sound a little esoteric, but it's the power of choice. Obviously, when we choose, we'll talk more about this. If we choose to do one thing, we're probably choosing to not do another. But the power of choice, to understand and gain personal insight about how you approach your money. And that might have a little bit to do with the past. And I want everybody to kind of get real about what needs to happen for your financial wellness. All right, it's time for a poll, just in case you're dozing off. Tina, are you ready? It's an age poll, so it's simple. How old are you? If you could enter into that box, and we'll find out what demographics we have on this meeting. I forgot the music. See? We're halfway in. Great. All right, we can end the polling and see that most of us fall into the 45 to 60 year range. We do have a 21 to 30 year old, and obviously we've all heard and we know the millennials and the Generation Zs look and think about money different than we do. And if we had an 80 or 90 year old on this call, they're the people that went through the Great Depression. Those people and how they handle their money is very different than somebody who might be a baby boomer or Generation Xer. They might be more apt to hoard money, or like my grandma did, you'd open a Band-Aid box and it'd be full of $20 bills. I was like, what? But that's because of her generation and where she comes from. So age matters. I don't know if I want to, we are our choices. Okay, this is the next slide. I want to talk to you about choice, because choice is everything about how I ended up 10 years ago in this profession. When I went to school and decided what I was going to do with my life, I wanted to become a physical therapist, and that's what I did. That choice came out of really growing up in a poor family. We lived in a great place. We grew up in Maumee, Ohio. Nobody would have thought of us as being poor, but my dad's one of those like super genius guys that can't keep a job. So the outcome is you don't have money, right? And because of that, they said we were below poverty level. My mom got to go to nursing school for free, and it changed our lives. So all I knew for sure is that I wanted to make money. I wanted to be in a profession that was in demand. And that's how I decided to go to physical therapy school and become one. And all those things were true. But I made another choice when I did that. I wanted to make that money and have that job so I didn't have to think about money. So I had it coming in. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to look at it. And without realizing it, I chose to be money avoidant. I thought that was just women in healthcare, because I met a lot of other women in healthcare who felt the same way. But over these past 10 years, I realized that it's actually women in general. There's research done that says women, primary business owner, like a business owner, a primary breadwinner, a stay-at-home mom, we are all very similar in our feelings. But it's a choice, because you can make money and you can choose not to look at it, or you could do both. So I wanted to kind of mention the power in that choice. Another quote, I'm all into the quotes, you guys, but at any point we can change the direction of our lives by a simple choice. It's all in our hands, our hearts, and our minds. And you're like, yeah, that's really true. But, choice continued, to be a factor. How did I end up in financial services? Well, it was partly, actually, no, we missed a poll. Now that I look, I wanted to do a poll about your financial background when you were growing up. So let me give you a little background before you jump into the answers. So in my case, our family, we were poor, okay, and they said below poverty level, but we weren't hungry. So I want to say that. So I'm going to end the polling right now just to say something about this and we'll put it back up again in a minute. I believe you can do that, Tina, right? I'm assuming you're saying yes. But okay, so back to that. We weren't hungry. We knew where our meals were coming from. I was super food focused. Like, I knew when I had my own money, I wanted to go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac and a fillet of fish, which I know sounds silly, and I never did it. But you can see, like, I wanted to have my own money because I wanted to have two things, not just one, 2 sandwiches at McDonald's. So we weren't hungry. I was food focused, but I say we weren't poverty. We were lower middle class. I also described like middle class, lower middle class, you don't take vacations, just to kind of make sure our polling is the same. Middle class, you might take, vacations. It's like hardworking, the value of $1. You might have done chores for an allowance. And you might go on vacation sometimes. Overnights weren't usual in hotels. So upper middle class, money's pretty easy. It's coming in. Middle class, you might not get money for the ice cream truck every time, but you would if you were upper, I don't know. And then wealthy, of course, you want for nothing. That is not to say 2 things. One, every child feels like they don't have enough at some point. And the second thing is that even if you had all the money in the world, it doesn't mean that you weren't affected by parents who might have been stressed out about it anyways. Maybe they fought about it, that sort of thing. So I want y'all just to be thinking about where you come from with money. And then Tina, why don't you throw the poll up there so we can see how it all shakes out. Are we able to? There we go. Oh, and now we have to start over the music. Oh no, it's replacing it. I might not have music ever again, you guys. Yeah, just do the polling, please. All right, let's kind of see how things are coming in. Yeah, I totally messed up my Jeopardy recording. Oh, well. All right, here, lower middle class, 70% in the hardworking middle class America, 5% in upper, 5% in wealthy. Pretty, what I would say sort of how we see things. One thing to mention now, let's think about the kids today. There are probably kids today who a year ago wanted for nothing. And now might have had parents, both parents could be out of work, no income, lost a business, lost money. Those kids are going to be affected by the way their parents are handling an awful situation right now out in the world. So they might, who knows how it will affect them. But the point being, we are all affected by what goes on around us. And I believe when we get to adulthood, I always tell Noelle this, if they make it to adulthood and no one's in prison or no one, no homicide, it's a success. You got them there, it's successful. And then it's our choice as adults to make a difference and change how we approach and how we view things. So thanks for looking through at that. So how did I become a financial advisor? It was my mother's choice and my choice. I worked my way up on the ladder at the company and was a vice president of operations, made great money, was busy all the time, paid financial advisors, and my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So she lived in Toledo, I was in Dayton. That's how I ended up coming to Cleveland. I said, well, we got to get to Cleveland. So I quit my job and moved to Cleveland. And my mom moved to Cleveland to get her into a clinical trial. And okay, so think about this one, choice, my mother's choice. I said to her, you have to decide at some point if you're going to live the rest of your life, however long it is, living or dying. There are plenty of people in the world who have no diagnosis like she did, that kind of live their life like they're dying. They're not out there realizing, it's a short-term opportunity and we have to make the most of it. Well, my mother chose to do what she could. So we get her in this clinical trial. If she didn't make that choice, I wouldn't have moved to Cleveland when I did. So here we go. We move on up here. She gets in the clinical trial. It's miraculous. It was a 60% reduction in tumor size. My sister was pregnant with the first grandbaby girl, so she was coming to visit a lot. I end up in New Jersey on a trip, with a friend and meet a guy who wants to get me an interview with New York Life and investments, financial planning, and I made a choice. That choice was that I thought life is led if you let it. I mean, it would have been easy to say no. In my mind, I've told some of you on this, that I sort of felt like, gosh, if the cancer doesn't kill my mother, I think this will, because I had a great job, but instead, I went home and talked to my mom about it, and it's kind of fascinating. She was very supportive. She thought, gosh, we all need to know more about finance, and obviously it was an issue in our lives. She also said something that I don't tell people very much. I was embarrassed originally that this was related to a life insurance company, because I didn't want to just be a life insurance agent. I wanted to help people with their whole financial picture. So I never talked about it. But one of the other things my mother said on that day was, honey, oh my gosh, Aunt Mary. So my great aunt bought a policy on my mom when she was a little girl. She goes, honey, I borrowed on that policy so many times to give you kids Christmas. I might not have had a Big Mac and a Filet-O-Fish, but we had great Christmases. And you don't think about it as a kid. And I didn't think, well, we don't have money, but we had a great Christmas, you know. So wow, she borrowed against a whole life policy. I was going to put a poll in there to ask you guys if you knew that. I had no idea that life insurance was anything but a death benefit for people after you die, but it can have a much bigger part of a financial plan. And I'm not embarrassed about it. It's a reality. But we don't have to poll about it. If you didn't know, that's okay. So moving along here, let's see, we're gonna move slides and get on to what our next little part. So we've really overemphasized choice. All right, let's go back to that quote. By 2030, women will control 2/3 of our nation's wealth. So why is that? I mean, well, we're gonna earn it. We're gonna make it in the market. Not today, but maybe, you know, and we're going to inherit it. That's how that's happening, that money is going to transfer. And like I said before, I like to talk about this so people, you know, weren't offended by it. You know, I often do wine, women, and wealth presentations because I know women like other women. Some of them like wine. And if I have 2 out of 3, then they might come and show up and learn something about wealth. But I never wanted to push them. I only wanted to talk about the stuff they wanted to hear about. And they became my favorite topics. I was going to do that today. Just talk about tricks of the trade, things that, you know, you can get out of the system. Like with Social Security, we love helping, you know, women get a dead ex-spouse's Social Security and grow their own. I mean, then they're like celebrating the dead ex-spouse because they get more money in certain circumstances. But that's one of the tricks. One of the things we like to do, or minimize taxes. So there you go. You know, really maximizing and securing retirement income planning so they always know they have what they need even without market performance. And I, you know, like to talk about obstacles, expenses, things like probate. I am going to mention one more thing just because it's my mom, and gosh, getting close to Mother's Day, it's worth honoring, right? So my mom supports all my effort to get into this business. And so I take all the classes I'm learning about insurance, disability, life insurance, health insurance, investments, annuities, and she died. We weren't expecting it. It was after the grandbaby girl was 3 weeks old. So she died all of a sudden, and we didn't, you know, she was beating the cancer. So it was probably like a blood clot or something like that. But in the moment, you know, in that hospital room, my sister, who has a PhD and she's really smart, just ask her, just teasing, but she would say, she said to the nurse of all things, and my mom was a nurse, you know, but she said to the nurse, what is probate? And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't know, you know, but we knew it was something in our future. And so suddenly then I could kind of look to the heavens and be like, oh, I get it, Mom. I mean, I need to teach people about this stuff. So I can help them, or help them get to an attorney, or help them avoid expenses they don't have to have. Because whether you make money in the market or you keep money in your pocket, you're winning. And that's the point. That's the life part of financial investments and financial planning. We have a poll about probate. Chris or Tina, are you, yeah, it's a multiple choice here of options. Did you already know about probate? And do you have a plan for yourself or your parents, if that's the case? So it's, look at you guys, everybody knows about it. All right, no Jeopardy music, sorry about that. Still have answers coming in. 5 more seconds, sorry, for those of you who have nodded off, just joking. Okay, so a couple no's and no's, 30% of people not having yes and no's, you know, okay, so we're all in a, I don't know that you, okay, there we see it. Did you already know about it? A lot of people do, so that's a good news, probably because you're a part of this group and Meg's a part of this group, among probably other attorneys. You know, it was something I had no idea about. Now, if I do this, are we back to the regular screen? You might have to click it off your screen. Okay, cool. All right. So, you know, money tricks are one thing, but in advancing my slides here, there we go. Ladies, it's time to get serious about our money. And that's where it's not just the fluff stuff. So a lot of people love to hear about those topics. Yeah, and they get all into it. I didn't do a poll, but maybe you could think to yourself, maybe you've done some planning. Maybe you're on top of your financial plan significantly. I think we have maybe one last poll that I'm going to do before kind of getting into the financial part, because here's the big question I have. Before COVID-19, you know, I'm thinking this because it's not exactly how the question is worded, but how many people had an emergency fund? We all know we're supposed to have that 3 to 6 months in the bank. Who really does? And I know there's some of you who do. And I know there's some of us that, you know, we didn't have more than 3 months, or, you know, and the world is that way. But crisis creates action. So let's go actually to the last poll, and you don't have to worry too much more about polling then. How comfortable are you with your finances before the coronavirus? You could click more than one. You feel like you were on track with your financial goals, felt very comfortable. That those people obviously have their emergency funds in place. Your husband or partner takes care of it, blissfully unaware. You don't worry about money, but you don't focus on it like you should. You worry about being able to retire, that it won't last as long as you live. A lot of people find it confusing. I do. It just is. I like really simplifying language, and I need help. All right. I'll bet the people who are on track with their financial goals know also about probate. So we'll end the polling, and there's the answers. Our biggest areas are people who feel comfortable with it, and yet some of those same people might worry. A lot of people have a division of labor at home, and I think when there's little kids involved, you know, sometimes you just got to do that. But even if you have, I'm going to take this off the screen. Oh, can you see the polling results? Okay, it's fine. The point is, we're all over the place. And if you guys all came back and were like, yep, I'm good, I'd be like, why are we even talking about this? But anyhow, all right, so it's time to get serious about our finances. What does that mean? I probably have a few. Oh, I'm going to use my mouse. That's going to make life a lot easier. There we go. How do we first reduce stress with money? And this is where the tough love comes in. We have to give money and finance the time it deserves. There are some people I work with, they're my clients, and especially women with children. I feel like everything else is going to come before a meeting about their finances. I mean, maybe I rate one step higher than their funeral planning, but that's about it. Like, they'll send a husband, they cancel the meeting, we don't meet. And so they're not focused on it. They can't be. But it has to happen. And believe it or not, Zoom has been extraordinary. Those women are meeting because they can click a button and we're all together. They don't have to travel. They don't have to juggle their kid. It'll probably be a little different when those, you know, they have those things. But giving it the time it deserves. I challenge all of you, no matter how much it's in your life, set yourself a date, like just like a workout. Maybe you work with a business coach. I do. I have a date with that person every other week. We should have a date with our finances. Do it with your partner, your spouse, whatever, but be focusing on it like something that you do in a part of a wellness plan. It's a part of your life and what you do in general. I used to tiptoe around it because nobody wants to look at it, but it is time, and give it the time that it deserves. You know, critical to me is knowing where the money goes. Cash flow is king. When I talk about these things, and it'll be on another screen as well, I'm talking, do you know how much money you bring in goes right into your bank account. Maybe what is your after-tax amount that you receive from working every time you get a check, whether it's once a week, 26 times a year, 24 times a year. You need to know that. You need to know it. I think often maybe the people I work with, I assume because we make enough money not to have to worry, we do not pay attention. I think that changes with the coronavirus, because now to have money instantly stop in some cases. So you have to know what's coming in and you have to know what's going out. You would be surprised how many clients I have, especially when they're in retirement and they have all the income they need. They'll say, can I afford this? And I'm like, I want you to tell me if you can afford it, because you got to know what's coming in and what's going out. A lot of women confuse this with a budget. Budget is not a 4-letter word. People hate that word. It's about just knowing cash flow, money coming in, money going out. If you're a business owner, and so I think that's what this whole group's about, you got to know it for business. Well, you need to know it for home as well. Pay yourself first when you pay down debt. Sometimes people find that surprising, and being that we have all different ages on here, you might or might not have debt. Young people have come and said in our office, I hate that, like it's a teacher, I hate that they put money from my paycheck into my retirement when I have student loan debt. But that's a perfect example of why you should pay yourself while you pay your debt, because that young teacher is going to be able to retire when she's 55 because they're doing that for her. What happens to the rest of us? You know, we make a good living, we don't pay attention to it. Next thing you know, you're maybe buying a house, planning a wedding, having a baby, and then you're 55 years old. Not only are you not retiring, you're starting to really stress out about money and being able to retire. So, you know, from the young person that I wasn't expecting to learn a lesson from, it's a lesson to all of us, that it's a combination of both. These aren't hard concepts. If you need support, hire a coach. You know, you can have a time with a financial planner. It doesn't even cost you a dime, you know, but it's an investment that's worth making, so you don't have those stressors. Okay, having 3 months of expenses available for emergency or pandemic, it's a good idea. It's not going to happen overnight. So as you're building up that fund, you're also paying down your debt if you have debt. But we have to do it. And we'll all remember when we experienced a pandemic and might not have had all the money that we would have hoped. Okay, cute little quote here. Most stress is caused by 3 things: family, money, or family with no money. And so there's a lot of family now these days. And for a lot of us, you know, extra time with family isn't a bad thing, but a lot of stressors. Some probably on this, in this meeting are possibly homeschooling, as well as being business owners and dealing with families. So I think it just kind of made me smile, because I know people are kind of getting a lot of fill with family, but we can affect money. And that's why, you know, we're discussing it. So I like this one too, you know, from Ramsey. You gotta tell your money what to do or it will leave. And it's the reality. If you're not in control and the one deciding, you guys know it, for those of you who are mothers, you gotta tell the kids, right? Well, you gotta tell the money too. I mean, not that you want to treat your money like it's a child, but honestly, it's a significant part of our life, as significant, I would assume, as having children, although that's like the greatest thing ever. I don't have children. Either way, you know, obviously quite important. So how do you do that? You know, how do you know, and I know you can't see these, but they're worksheets. They're things that we have to do, just like, you know, if you go on a diet, they tell you to write down in a log what, you know, and I don't know that you have to see it. It's a budget. It says budget on it, a budget worksheet. The second one is being a spending detective, because then instead of looking at it like a budget, look at it like a game. I mean, when you start really getting into the forensics of your financials, you're going to find things that were charged on your credit card that you didn't even know was being charged. You know, people don't dig in. They have their bills paid automatically online, and they've kind of lost sight of what's happening. So investing yourself into actually the pieces and parts that need to happen, and taking the time. Do you want to take the time? No. Should we all be doing this? Yes. And to me, it's all about flow. the flow of money will come more to us when we create the right habits, the right discipline. It's the same as exercise. When I exercise in the evening, I tend to plow through less junk food, afterwards. If I don't, I might, so everything, again, they're choices. Choices and actions will have varying reactions and realities. And so again, another piece, do you want to do it? No, but if you create a discipline and habit around it, it's not so bad and it's not that hard. So again, having somebody support you or working with you along the way is always a good idea. Just be a forensics expert with your cash flow, because you're going to find money you didn't know you had. I'm going to use a personal example as well. It's kind of different, but it's about money. I mean, we have a deck that needs to be replaced, and that's expensive. So we're looking at, there's some different things. We have an extra car, we can sell that car. I mean, what is the way that we can bring more money in, excluding savings? Because why shouldn't that savings stay in the emergency fund? So we're becoming an expert at what can we do, how can we look at it to pay for something we want without just getting the credit card out. That's often, spending is such a part of sometimes the problem. But how do you know? You got to set your financial goals. All right, we all have goals. You want to be out of debt, pay off the house, retire. You want to know you have enough, but how do you really know? Some of it's just math. But you got to focus on your core values. And right now I need a little drink. So that, another thing that just sounds so simple. This is an interesting challenge. If, we have sheets, and again, maybe I can pass this on, Katie, PM, you guys could tell me, I can, have attachments, PDFs, but we do have, if you look at sort of 50 core values, it's not as easy as you think to get it pared down to 10, and then pare it down to 5. And doing that with a partner, spouse, friend, you learn a lot about each other and what matters, because your financial goals or your financial spending should support those. It can't be everything. We've had people who have come to us with spending issues, and, they wouldn't notice, the $6 at Starbucks every time they're at work, based on kind of where they work. But yet they had to travel. Her sister lived in LA. And so there was so much travel. But if family was most important, that's where the money ought to go. And there are other ways. I mean, you can go to a happy hour and not just go out for drinks on a Saturday night and save 50% of the money. But if you're paying attention and you base it on your values, you're getting what you really want. And that's the point. So being a scientist about where you're spending is just so you can have more to spend. It's not a bad trade-off, actually. So I'll share like I said, sort of 50, it's 50 different values, and then pairing it back to what are the top 5 for you. And again, not easy. And I think they'll be very interesting to do with a spouse or partner as well. So going into debt isn't usually about money, like not having enough money. It's about a lack of vision. What is your vision? What do you want? And then being willing. Do you have to sacrifice? I do not believe. My mother died at 69, young woman. I think life is short, and I never encourage people to live like paupers, because you got to live comfortably and address your goals. A budget, looking at spending, doesn't have to be, it's not the enemy. It's actually the part of creating your vision, so you have all the things that you wish for. So trying to figure it out. Where are you now, and where do you want to go? Everybody's in a different place. Everybody feels different about money. It's about taking inventory of what you make, what you owe, what you own, how you spend, and your plans for the next 5, 10, and 25 years. If an advisor, if anyone tells you that, oh, this is the plan and this is what you do because this is what everybody does, it's not the case. This is super personal stuff. This is as personal as, being a physical therapist, some of you might garden while others of you don't. Real different physical demands that are different if somebody had a joint replacement, so our plan of care is different for each individual, and it is for you as well. There isn't a one size fits all, and it's not just wave a wand and you just do this. So if you find yourself ever saying, well, I just want to get it done. Well, no, you just don't. You want to have a plan that fits your whole life and lifespan, and be looking at things, not just in one period of time, but over time and forever. What you think about when you're going into retirement will be very different than what you think about when you're 85. At 85, you're more in touch with your mortality. How can I leave the world a little better off or less burdened, and what's important? So thinking about those things as you go. Life changes as we're making plans, but if you plan ahead by thinking a few years down the road, that certainly helps. So, reaching financial goals, it depends on only 3 things. And I mean this sincerely. I mean, well, obviously you need to care about your finances and want to plan, but it is time, money, and rate of return. Now, I know when I say rate of return, everybody's like, oh, those are the kind of words that make me want to go to sleep. So think of it this way. So I turned 50 last year, and I expect, because this work is not like laying brick, I'll work probably the better part of 20 more years. So my time would be 20 years. You could say 15, but let's go with 20. It's a round number. How much money do I have, or am I comfortable putting away? Like, I can look at, if I contribute X amount to an IRA each year and I save this amount, and then I might use averages when it comes to rate of return. Or maybe I'm so conservative, I only want fixed interest from the bank. I'm afraid of the market, whatever. The market averages 6 to 7% over time. Not this year, but over time, it does. So we can look at those averages and build those in. And then we're able to do math to say, what do you need to retire comfortably? What do you need to have the number you're looking for to help your children pay for education? You can really ratchet it back to those things. If you increase any one of those things, so if I have, let's say, a husband and wife, he's a physician, and the wife and he come in and say, we want to retire at age 62. Well, then we can start doing the math together and working through it. So they have X amount of years. We're going to use average returns. The amount of money they would have to put away to retire at 62 was a lot higher than she was willing to give up in her day-to-day standard of living. So she said, how about 66? Because if she wasn't willing to put more money, if it required X amount of money, you know what I can do? I can point. I'm going to point I guess I'm not pointing. I thought I was. Anyway, okay. I could point if I was good at Zoom, but I'm not there yet. So if she wasn't willing to put the money in that needed to go. So since that was lower, she had to increase her time. That's what I'm saying. So as if we all thought in 2019, as the market's going like gangbusters, boy, I'll have enough to retire next year. Well, now you don't, because that rate of return went to the negative and took away. It just depends on your portfolio. But as it's just the simple time, money, and rate of return, you can really calculate it. And, my sister called me the day things started to go crazy, and she's like, your life must be hell right now. And, as people get closer and closer to retirement, the money on your statement value, it's kind of like being at a casino and playing cards and having a big pile of chips in front of you. It means nothing until you cash those chips out and walk away from the table. I mean, you have to be willing, and so I work with people on that. It still doesn't feel good, because a lot of people have lost a lot of money, but again, not that hard. You should be getting the help of others to do it. Noelle and I, my assistant, she's on this meeting. When we talked about it, she goes, people want, some of the basics. Like, what are the basic things you'd recommend? First and foremost, commit to your finances, start tracking, income and expenses, and celebrate your wins. If you're doing this with a partner or a spouse, track it. You know how they use those, United Way when you give and they show the thermometer. Well, keep a visual aid so you're getting there, and build in kind of the celebration, what you'll do to celebrate, big and small. Start with a $1,000 emergency fund. If you should have one and you didn't have one, start there. Keep after it, a little bit at a time, but at least have that $1,000 that you maintain always. Pay yourself while you're paying down your debt. We talked about that a little bit more previously. Manage risks and learn about investing. What are risks? Well, disability and death, basically. Those are the biggest ones. Obviously, you need to have homeowners insurance and car insurance, but the one thing that will change your investment plan or saving for your kids' school or your own retirement, you and your spouse, let's say, is if you became disabled or died. So those are things that have to be a part of a financial plan. And ultimately, getting to the point where you do work with a professional to create, a comprehensive plan for you. It's the best way. You have a roadmap. Best way to get where you want to go isn't to just get in the car and leave. It's to have, your GPS with you, your phone telling you where to go. So this stuff's not hard. It's important to get started where you are, create a habit and a discipline, make it part of your personal wellness. And as Nike says, just do it. All right. And if you can't just do it, you can just change your perspective. Eliminate the word can't from your vocabulary. So much of what we say matters, and the word can't, whether you can or you can't, you're right. So don't say can't, because you won't. We can almost, I think pretty much we can do anything we set our minds to. So eliminate that word. Money management is your friend. That's a new mantra. So it's not the evil enemy. It's the way you get to have and spend what you want. And we should get real comfortable with that. I want you to consider this. So it's the person who goes to Starbucks or whatever. If you spend $4 getting a cup of coffee on your way to work, it's just what you do. It adds up. It's over $1,000 in a year. That's just one way. You could look at making an adjustment. And I'm not saying, but if your value, I don't think coffee is on that value page, but if it is, okay, well, get your coffee then. But there are just ways to really look at things and evaluate your perspective about it to get what you want and have what you need. Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up, if you change your thoughts, you'll change your world. And I believe that to my core. I want women to start changing their thoughts about money and get super comfortable with getting involved and doing what they need to do. I hope even a little bit today, I might have had you consider changing your thoughts a little differently. And that is my presentation. So I can certainly open things up for questions and I can get rid of the sharing. So that's my first virtual presentation. Willing to hear anything you guys need. Oh, I see claps. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. This was
Yes.
this was much more fun than when I go to my financial advisor.
Good. Fun is important.
Every quarter. So one question that was a repeated theme during the chat box is people were so invested in seeing the worksheets. They may be proprietary, but is that something you can share with us?
Yeah, and I didn't say that clearly. I can follow up and send those out as well as the values. I know you couldn't see them because you're little, but I didn't want to also,
Well,
it wasn't.
they were provocative and wonderful, and I think help people get some clarity around it. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the positive feedback. I appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity. It was not comfortable, but it worked.
We have plenty of time for questions. So anybody that wants to ask, feel free. I'm going to mute myself.
So I have a daughter who's just starting her career, and she does not understand why she should put any money away. Like, she does not want them to take even $150, $25 out of her paycheck every month. And do you have any advice on helping her to understand that?
The way, again, I go back to that story about the teacher, who it was a client's daughter. They said, we told our daughter, if she comes to you, we'll stop bugging her about money. And so she came and I was kind of frustrated. Noelle knows. I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. But the lesson was for me. It was sitting down and helping her see that by them taking that money out and putting it away, she would have more options in the future that people don't have when they don't think about it. We have an associate that works with us from time to time, and he's busy paying down his debt. And there's great strategies for paying down debt, that an advisor can help you with. But when you get done paying down the debt, what I would do, I played basketball in college. I'm a slow white woman, so I didn't have I didn't have debt. But if I did, this is what I would have done. I just know it, the instant gratification Big Mac girl. I would have paid off the debt, and then I would have rewarded myself with a break. So Katie, I think if there's somebody you trust that you've worked with, that is somebody that might appeal to your daughter, to be able to speak to them about this is why you do it and show them the bigger picture. It's critical. And then even if they heard it, it's just like the things today. Perhaps you heard a message similar to mine not that long ago, and now you're like, okay, great. She changed her whole career when a guy talked to her about doing something different. But you heard this message again by your daughter hearing a similar message again and again, not just from mom or dad.
Right. That's what I was going to say. My husband is really all about investing, but
even more
Katie,
reason she
he
won't
doesn't
be.
hear it from us. It's the wah, 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 wah,
Katie,
Well, we all
this is
remember it,
Noelle.
right?
This is Noelle, Katie. Show her the numbers.
Yeah.
Let somebody show her the numbers. You show her the numbers. If you put $100 a month away, what happens to it? If you just put it in the bank, if you just put it here, if you get used to spending without the $100, you don't know that you don't have it, whatever the case may be. And, explain to her again, not everybody has pension plans. You're not guaranteed to have money later in life. So show her the numbers. When you roll $100 a month for depending on what you do with it, you can't beat the hard fact of the number.
Well, and I say, and this is just me not being a parent, but I have, of course, tons of friends with children. I think it's evolutionary that she will not listen to you.
Right.
I mean, there's, she gets to think she's smarter than everybody, so she leaves the house. So yeah, somebody else and somebody that she can relate to and see. And again, a consistent message will actually make a difference over time. Kind of like the things, all the things that impressed us when we were growing up to get us where we were. But I think it's hard, and especially, how old's your daughter, Katie?
23.
She doesn't even have a full frontal cortex yet. So,
right.
Like the executive planning isn't quite there, but hearing the message now and trying to be patient, it'll take some time. And then,
Well, just what a difference it can make if you start young. I mean, it's, that growth that can happen over time is incredible.
So true.
The coffee example is, she lives in New York City, stopping for a cup of coffee on the way to work is part of her life. So, that's it. That's pretty amazing. If I tell her it adds up to $1,000 a year, probably more.
Yeah, I use $4 because I was imagining in Geauga County, people aren't hanging out at Starbucks that much as they might like by the clinic or something. So I did $5. Yeah, I don't know. It ends up being, I think $5 a day is like $1,800 a year, 10 years. I mean, you can just do the math. If you did nothing but stuff it in your mattress, you'd have a ton of money and,
right.
Right. So I don't recommend that, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
There's a question that came in on the chat, actually.
Okay.
Basic advice on what to do if you are 1 to 2 years from retirement and you've already lost 25 to 30% of your investment, like everyone who is fortunate enough to have investment savings.
Right. So it's a toughie. And I'd say if you're not working with an advisor, I would get with one and talk to friends and get a referral to people that they know and trust and who is willing to talk through the feelings about money, because that's scary. The question is, did they need that money to retire? So, and some people just don't know. They just know they've been saving, and whenever they're done working, it better be enough. And that's kind of like hope being a plan. So the first thing is, do they really know their numbers? If you don't know your numbers, then, it's come on in and we can plow through them. A first meeting is nothing. It's, to kind of look at where are you and what is enough. And that's the thing. If until we know how much it costs her to live I assume it's a female, what it costs them to live their lives, how much money and income has to be replaced, how much is guaranteed of the money that they either guaranteed or in no risk investments. Those are all pieces. Most people say to me, I'll just work longer. Well, remember the equation, time, money. So the money went down. So either time or rate of return has to go up. But really, I think when you're within 1 or 2 years of retirement, you need to really be working with a professional to have a plan to get your chips off the table so that it is not entirely market exposed. Some of it should be, it has to keep up with inflation. But I think for anybody, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of Zoom meetings with people that are either in retirement or right not far from it to make decisions. And they needed to be maybe less aggressively invested so that they didn't maybe have a 20% loss. That doesn't mean, it just depends on their numbers. So what I would say for everybody else, if you're 10 years to retirement, one thing you can do with the current state of the world these days is put more in your 401k. I know that sounds wacky, but if you increase what you're putting away there as the market returns, which it will, history proves that it could be a 5-year slog of getting back to where it was. But by putting more into your 401k, you're buying more shares when the market's low. So that's one quick tip if you have time. The person who's 2 years from retirement doesn't have time. But I would say it's I think we're expecting another down in the market. They call it like a bounce. It will be tested to go down deeper. And there's just no way our economy has been so challenged and it won't continue. But we always came back from the Great Depression, came back from a Great Recession. It's just a matter of how do you handle it now. And I think when you're close to retirement, you should definitely have help, from another person, professional. Other questions? Mary, I think you had one. Mary Bruner, did you have a question? Yeah.
Hi,
Mary
Erin.
Beth. Hi, yes.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you. I just wanted to share it's a coffee story, and that is that when I turned 60, I received a gift certificate to Starbucks for $60. And I was like, wow, that, I like their mochas, but whatever. I just was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to cash it in to give a few other gift certificates? And it ended up that I bought 5 pounds of my favorite coffee.
Oh.
And I got so many more cups of coffee than 12.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, yeah. So I just
Maximize
wanted
your
to mention that. And also I went to one of your other presentations about an emergency fund.
Right.
And my son is a young attorney, and I talked with him about about your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And he's now trying to get an emergency binder together for the family.
Oh, cool.
And, just kind of putting all those things together regarding insurance and all of that. So that was a really helpful presentation.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear it.
That.
Thanks for the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I wonder if you can, there was a comment made about bankruptcies as a result of the COVID. I wonder if you have any market intel that you feel good about sharing, just as a general.
Well, I can share things that people already know, but I think when you realize that somebody thinks something of that, maybe that's helpful.
Yeah.
The one thing we didn't know when the market was just plummeting and crashing, and word from the Cleveland Clinic is the number of deaths, and we would know people. It was so bleak and so unlike any other time, so we worked with clients to decide on what to do there and then. We could not have expected the amount of stimulus that our government plowed in and is technically still plowing in to the world right now. And that's awesome, because I guess they were seeing themselves as having not done enough in 2008. I didn't work in this yet. So they're plowing so much stimulus in. Could they, and I wonder if this is the question, could they forgive some element of bankruptcies? That's kind of what I'm hearing in the question. I don't know if that's the case. We don't know, but I would say I feel that they're doing everything they possibly can right now. So it seems like I kind of favor the idea that we could see some forgiveness, but that, I'm guessing. I don't have any idea, But again, working with a professional to really evaluate your options. I had a woman who was in a car accident when she's a client. I inherited her. I did not know her, but she had an accident when she had baby girls at home and became a paraplegic. So she raised children, in a wheelchair. Like, I don't know. It's inspiring, but now her shoulders hardly work, and she's actually, in a tough spot and relatively dependent. So she was planning on doing a reverse mortgage, and I say that kind of like bankruptcy. She was going to do this reverse mortgage, and I can't make recommendations on reverse mortgages, but one thing I could point out to her, that she could use the equity in her home and be able to refinance her home and not have to go down a reverse mortgage. Don't give your house to somebody else. Use your own equity. So by working with professionals and seeking the advice of others, maybe a team of people, you will have more options than just thinking the only choice is bankruptcy. And I don't know it, and maybe it is. But I think all of us together know far more than any one of us can know alone. And even though you feel so alone when you're going through a financial hardship, the truth is you're so not alone, but you, again, have to be willing to step out and seek the input from others. So don't know if that was helpful.
Very. There's two more questions. Meg asked what we could expect. So you said, the average market return over time is 6 to 7%. Are there estimates right now over the next 10 to 15 years, given this blip, what people are saying might be an average RRR?
So yeah, we listen a lot to tons of information on this. Realize in 2008, we lost 30, I think it was the S&P 500 lost 34% that year. And that's kind of, right now we're not as low. The person mentioned before, they're at 20%. So right now we're not there. We might get more back, we might get less back. So the averages, if you think about it, include the Great Depression. They include 2008. In the year 2000, 2001, and 2002, every single year the market was negative. I didn't know that. I didn't work in this. But the average then over any 10 to 15 year period is the same, 6 to 7%. So provided you aren't sitting in cash, take all your money out of the market, never go back in. There's a place and a time if you need to take money out. I did. I mean, this is something, wow, I'm telling all of you. I just thought we were in such an unprecedented time. I feared the fact that my statement value, even though it was something at one time, could be nothing. If we went into such a great recession and the markets were doing horrible, could we have no value? Even though, like in the Great Depression, the banks had no money value, could now our investments have nothing because we aren't producing goods and services. We're not shipping around the world. The supply chain is all messed up. So I took a pause. And for young people, I'm saying I'm young, aren't you noticing that? For young people who have more than 10 years, or to take a pause isn't a bad thing. To take 1 month out, but that also disrupts your continued gains. But I feel better because what if we all went to nothing, So back to what are the averages? Every economist will tell you that it will continue to average over a 10 and 15 year period, 6 to 7%, even though we're in such this time is unprecedented. We've been through different crises that have caused similar downs, and then we still average the same. If you're close to retirement, you got to do it different, though. I just have to say that because
it's tough when you just retire and this happens.
Yes, that is that's painful. And again, so what do you do with what you have? We got to figure out the next steps for the rest of your life. So it's the life you want.
Another question was on the PPP. There is a rumor that there's more money trickling back in. Mm-hmm. And you recommend, is there a bank that you work with that knows how to do it, that's a smaller bank that somebody could use, small business could use?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of recommendations. I can tell you even my own bank, PNC Bank, stopped taking, they very boldly said, we know there's more money, but we're just going to focus on the old applications. I did see some success for people working through PayPal, like online banking, kind of different. But that's where I would go because it's almost like it's less, this sounds wrong, less judgy, like PNC's like, oh, we're not doing it if you're not part of this bank. But then even having been a part of that bank, they're like, but we're doing no new applications. And I thought, wow, I just think they're deluged. They did not expect to be quite so busy with that. So I would definitely try online, and I would try more than I would, if you get declined, I would try again. And then if you're having problems, I mean, it's just looking for who will, walk through it with you. But I don't have like a guarantee for you to say this is the best way to go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? No.
Oh, somebody just, hold on. Yeah. Debbie recommended First Federal of Lakewood. Oh, good choice. They keep their own mortgages still, I think.
First Federal is an awesome place. That's where a lot of refinancing is going on. It's, I highly even encourage it, because right now our interest rates are lower than they're ever going to be. Quick example, because I think this might be helpful, again, going to a bankruptcy person who's like, I can't do this. It just depends on the circumstance. But even in my own case, I have a 20-year mortgage, and I could refinance for a 15-year mortgage, spend the same amount of money that I spend today and pay my house off sooner.
Right.
Okay, so think of that. Like, I'm going to fewer years. There are ways to use assets that we have. Remember, the one slide said, take inventory. What do you owe? What do you own? There might be ways that, and look at it differently. My dad, the crazy guy who can't keep a job, he's still alive, he'll live forever because he just kind of rewrites history in his mind. He is a little mentally ill, I'll tell you, but I don't know, why am I even telling, I don't know, now I lost my whole train of thought about that, but darn, he had some wisdom I was going to share. I know the wisdom is that he's a super creative guy when it comes to money. Because we didn't have any. I remember going to the grocery with him. So think of this, like 40 years ago, and he would get groceries and give them a bunch of coupons. So we cut them way before coupons were a thing, We'd go to all kinds of different stores and they'd give him money back. I was like, I just don't even know how he's doing that. But he was ingenious that way. And I'll give him a shout out to say that I couldn't appreciate him as much as I do now in this business, because I find it my job to try to look creatively for solutions and answers for everybody's individual situation. And it's thanks to him, kind of the mind works that way. Looking at the mortgage, and Third Federal is a phenomenal place to go. They specialize in us, the people in the community.
So Ashley recommended that Savista Bank in Beechwood or Middlefield might also be a place.
Awesome, thank you. I'll put that down.
2 votes for that, actually.
What's that?
2 recommendations for Savista Bank.
Okay, cool.
Another, or a small regional bank is what is kind of the idea.
Yeah, so the small regional banks had less hoops to jump through because they're still compliant, but they have less compliance officers and less compliance things that they have to go through. The whole process for them was simpler than the big banks like Chase and PNC really had to build the infrastructure up, or the small regional banks, smaller group of people, they could work faster together and get things done. So they actually had a much, much higher success rate in getting the applications in and processed and reviewed and all that. So
awesome.
For anybody looking.
Thank you for that. That's awesome.
And Third Federal
I'd
was
like to
also,
just make, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment that I've loved your presentation. I love how you make it personal and bring in your story. And so many people are talking about money are afraid to talk about themselves at all. And I think that's just been beautiful to hear part of it.
Gosh, thank you. That makes me feel great. I appreciate it.
Sandy commented that on mortgages, rates are so low right now, rather than refinancing, considering adding more to principal payment each month to get an offset. Carol did get funding first round, but not second round. Didn't get funded until the second round. So it was a timing. Okay.
That happened a lot.
Yeah, I submitted my application fairly early in the first round, but the money was just boom, gone so quickly. And so when Congress allocated additional funds, that's when I got it. But it was still about half of what I applied for.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But I got it. I got it.
That's good. All right. Wow.
Any other questions, comments, parting statements? This has been delightful. I think it's provocative, and you've made us think, Erin.
Okay, gosh.
Yeah.
You know what? I was really nervous. So thank you for the feedback. I know there's things I could do better or differently, but it out of my comfort zone, and I appreciate having the stretch challenge of it all.
Thanks
You
for
know.
going there with us.
Yeah. Led
Thank
by
you.
example on stretching.
Yeah. We'll look forward to having you again when we can all meet in person.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
We also look forward, Erin, to having you as a member.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. How cool is it that I took my dog to Cold Nose Companions and Carol knew? I mean, it was like a Saturday. I didn't look like me, I didn't think. She's like, oh, you're going to be talking. And I'm like, wow. You know, but this has been fabulous. I really appreciate your warm and welcoming ways.
You're a Red Key celebrity, Erin.
Oh, thank you.
Unmute us all, Tina, so we can clap.
Oh, yay. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bravo.
Do you want to give us your contact info?
Yeah,
When you send out the stuff, give us your contact info. We'll get it to everyone.
Yeah, erinvick.com, Erin, ERINVICK. That's an easy, quick thing. Doesn't matter if you capitalize or not. So that's one simple thing where the website is. I will also, I guess, email you the different sheets that I talked about and that are, I'll email there. And then that has all our contact information in it as well.
Perfect.
Okay. And then once I'm a member, it'll all be there.
Yeah. We'll have instant access.
There you go.
And you're getting lots of love in the chat, Erin. Lots of
Okay,
thanks.
gosh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
have
you
to
for
figure out
addressing a scary topic so well, Christine said.
All right. Well, thanks for the positive feedback, you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Well,
Thank
everyone.
you.